So you want to have a wish granted. You make a device that can track the energy emitted by the 7 wish orbs so you can hunt them down and summon a massive dragon. Just for him to say,
"That wish is beyond my power."
"So you're telling me that you can't grant any wish?" I wish I knew what the limits of the Dragon Balls are.
As you wish.
No better place to start than the Dragon Balls on Earth. These Dragon Balls were originally made by Kami at some point after splitting himself in two, since Demon King Piccolo didn't know about them. Kami also felt nostalgic when he created them, but called it a racial memory instead of just a memory. This should mean that he was likely able to make them without being taught, like Namekians in the Dragon Clan on Namek are. It also helps to explain their weird weaknesses and differences when compared to their Namekian counterparts. Originally, Earth's Dragon Balls could only grant one wish at a time, and it was originally described as being able to grant any wish. Shenron himself says so, but I don't care what that dragon says, he's lying through his teeth. After a wish is made, the Dragon Balls go dormant for a year, turning to stone for the duration. Shenron himself can't grant wishes that surpass the power of his creator, who at this point is Kami. The first time this issue is brought up is the Saiyan saga, where he can't directly affect the Saiyans because they are beyond his power. It is important to note that while the wishes made must be within the creator's power to grant, it doesn't mean his creator could just grant the wishes himself. For example, Kami says he can't revive people, let alone restore the entire population of a planet. It really makes you wonder though, does Shenron have the power to make more Dragon Balls? I mean, making Dragon Balls is within Kami's power, right? But I guess Toriyama just wanted to avoid the whole wishing for more wishes argument. Wait, why hasn't anyone tried wishing for more wishes? Moving on from that though, the supposedly eternal dragon can be killed. We see him killed once by Demon King Piccolo, which is pretty weird for a couple of reasons. Why didn't he just scatter immediately like he normally does after granting a wish and saying farewell? Also, Kami was stronger than Piccolo Daimao, so why isn't Shenron? Is Kami's power only available for the wishes and not Shenron's physical being? It's a little weird, but it does seem to mean that the other dragons might be killable as well. Of course, the Dragon Balls are also limited by if their creator is alive or not, and if they die without establishing a successor before their death, like we see with Elder Guru and Elder Mori, the Dragon Balls will be deactivated. This is also true in reverse though, as we see when Piccolo is revived in the Frieza saga, Kami is revived, and by extension, the Dragon Balls were restored, all without additional steps needing to be taken. Speaking of the events on Namek, the freshly restored Dragon Balls are used to revive everyone killed by Frieza's men on Namek. At first, Shenron doubts if he's even capable of granting a wish that affects a planet so far away, but ultimately he succeeds. So despite him seeming confident of his ability to grant any wish in original Dragon Ball, Shenron not only says that there are things beyond his power in Dragon Ball Z, but he also has wishes that he's not sure are within his power without trying. Speaking of reviving, Shenron can't revive a person more than once. He can't revive a person that died of natural causes, like old age or disease, and he can't revive those who have been dead for longer than a year. The reason for the revival limit originally came from Shenron not being able to grant the same wish twice, but I think Toriyama realized rewording the wish just avoids this restriction, so he specifically changed it to the revival limit that we know today. It is important to keep in mind though, since Shenron might not be able to grant the same wish twice still, since we actually haven't seen him try. Of course, Shenron gets upgraded by Dende in the Cell Saga, and it's a pretty big one. Now Shenron can grant 3 wishes. However, if one of the wishes is to revive a large group of people, then the total number of wishes is dropped to 2. He also added the ability for Shenron to revive someone who's been dead for longer than a year. This isn't explicitly mentioned, but it is shown in Resurrection F with Frieza's revival. Notably, Shenron still can't revive someone if they've already been revived before. For some really weird reason, people think this limitation was removed by Dende, but he explicitly didn't. This is stated directly before the Cell games and after the Cell games by Shenron himself. I don't know if it was the old dub's fault that people think this, but just know, Dende never removed this restriction from the Dragon Balls, and Goku even knew about this restriction before he sacrificed himself in the Cell games. Shenron under Dende as God is still restricted by Dende's power. We see this when Shenron can't turn the androids back into humans against their wills, one of the few times we hear about a character's power being great enough to simply refuse a wish on them they didn't make themselves. This is actually a bit strange though, but I'll explain why later. Shenron was able to remove their bombs without permission though, as it doesn't fundamentally change them or their power, so there are things you can wish to change with being stronger than Shenron. It's just unclear what the line is. In the Buu Saga, we learned that dismissing Shenron early will store the remaining wishes and give him a shorter cooldown. So if you only need one wish now but might need one in a few months, then that's a good way to do it. Shenron also seems to have access to Namekian sources of information, maybe due to his connection with Dende, that allows him to access things like the contents of the Namekian Book of Legends, which contained the legend of the Super Saiyan God ritual. Now, I'm really trying to stay to canon uses of Shenron, but that's pretty tough when Dragon Ball Super has two continuities, a manga and an anime. And while we could all probably agree which arcs are filler arcs that Toei wrote themselves, it's much harder to agree what's filler or not when it comes to anime-only scenes, like an anime-only use of Shenron. This scene of Shenron being summoned before the tournament against Universe 6 doesn't make sense in the timeline since Shenron should still be on cooldown, but ignoring that, Shenron is incapable of finding even a planet-sized object in the vastness of the universe, and he definitely can't search a different universe for it. Then Shenron received his final upgrade in Dragon Ball Super Superhero, changing his dragon statue and allowing him to unlock people's potentials the way Elder Guru did on Namek, something he couldn't do before. So those are Shenron's limits, but what about the other dragons? Well, let's start with the Namekian dragon, Porunga. Besides being jacked out of his mind, Porunga is generally just a less restricted Shenron. If you could have made your way to Namek before it was destroyed, and if you could speak Namekian, you could have Porunga grant you 3 wishes. He's able to revive people more than once, and he was even able to find a planet nearly identical to Namek for the Namekians to inhabit. That might be easier than finding a Super Dragon Ball, but it doesn't seem much easier since it's still a planet-sized object in the vastness of the universe. The Namekian Dragon Balls even have a shorter cooldown than their Earth counterparts, only being inactive for 130 days rather than a year. However, Porunga did have some limitations, like being unable to revive multiple people at once, no option to use up another wish to do so or anything. When Elder Guru died and Elder Mori took over, this was changed so on New Namek, Porunga can revive large groups of people, and even better, he still has 3 wishes, making him just better than Earth's Dragon Balls at this point. I did skip over 2 very important details when covering Shenron and Porunga because I thought it'd be better to just cover them both at the same time. The first is asking permission. I mentioned Shenron needing permission to alter beings stronger than himself against their will, but he doesn't seem to actually ask 17 and 18. Maybe they would have refused anyway, but he could have tried at least. Porunga asks Goku if he wants to be teleported back to Earth, but Goku just refuses, which is pretty interesting since Broly is teleported back to Vampa by Shenron, meaning Broly was so panicked by Gogeta Blue, he trusted a weird voice in his head for a chance of escaping. The other weird inconsistency I find is bodies needing to be preserved for revival. Porunga specifically says he restored Krillin's body as a bonus when reviving him. In Dragon Ball and early parts of Z, characters' bodies were often put in some sort of preservation pod, and Frieza was revived while still in pieces in Resurrection F. So you need an intact body to revive characters, right? Well, in a lot of cases, bodies of characters, especially background characters, get entirely destroyed, like being turned into candy by Boo or slurped up by Cell. I understand, I'm overthinking things, but it is weird how wishy-washy the whole restoring life doesn't mean restoring the body rule is, especially when you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Oh, and don't get me started on the whole keeping your body in the afterlife thing, because that's an equally weird but completely unrelated and different situation. Before we get to the Super Dragon Balls, a very minor spoiler warning for the Granola arc. There are actually another set of Dragon Balls in that arc. This dragon is named Torombo. He only requires 2 Dragon Balls to summon and can only grant 1 wish. Unlike other dragons though, if a wish is beyond his power, he can grant it if the person making the wish agrees to a condition that compensates for the power required to make the wish. I'm not going to go too much into specifics because some people don't want to be spoiled, but I think it's important enough to know. Finally, we have the planet-sized Super Dragon Balls. If you could tug around 7 planet-sized wish orbs that scattered across 2 universes, congratulations, you can have any wish granted. But we've been lied to before, so let's see if this is actually true. The Super Dragon Balls were made by the dragon god Zalama. When gathered, they summon Super Shenron, who can grant any 1 wish, but the wish must be made in the language of the gods. Supposedly, the Namekians took pieces of the Super Dragon Balls to make their own, but I don't think this means all Dragon Balls are fragments of the Super Dragon Balls, as that wouldn't make sense for the Dragon Balls on Earth. Rather, the fragments were studied, and the Namekians reverse-engineered how to make their own much more compact Dragon Balls. We've recently been getting little hints here and there that there may be more to the Namekians than we originally thought, so this whole story might just be wrong or missing some important details. As for limitations, it's hard to be certain, but it doesn't seem like their wishing power is truly limitless. Let's start with the impressive wishes though. Super Shenron did revive Universe 6's Earth despite it being dead for a long time, and the souls that were there likely being in heaven or reincarnated. Remember, normal Dragon Balls need a soul to revive, so if you get reincarnated, that should mean normal Dragon Balls can't revive you as you were. And they also inconsistently need a body. So to restore Universe 6's Earth, Super Shenron had to reshape the planet, remake the decayed bodies of the Universe 6 Earthlings, and potentially unreincarnate, or even crazier, make duplicates of the souls that were reincarnated. This might be his least impressive wish, and it seems beyond the power of any other set of Dragon Balls. Speaking of what normal Dragon Balls can't do, Super Shenron also restored most of the multiverse with seemingly less effort than it took Porunga to revive the people on Earth in the Buu Saga. That's a vast amount to restore for obvious reasons, but to put it in perspective, we're talking trillions of lives brought back without souls or bodies, as well as all the matter, energy, and literal fabric of space-time restored. This is basically what was done for Universe 6's Earth, but on a multiversal scale and with more than just life to recreate. It is important to note that creation and restoration seems to be easier than destruction and erasure in Dragon Ball. Porunga restoring Earth doesn't make Elder Mori planet level, and gods of destruction are far stronger than gods of creation. So something potentially even more impressive is Super Shenron being able to force Goku to swap bodies with Zamasu, considering how strong Goku is by this point of the series. Remember, Zamasu had to travel a year into the future so the Super Dragon Balls would come off cooldown to swap bodies with Goku, so this Goku is a year more powerful, partially explaining the gap between Goku Black and regular Goku. Performing a wish against Goku's will is impressive, but that tells us more about Zalama than Super Shenron, since it's the creator's power that matters, and that's where Super Shenron's limits lie. You see, speaking of the future Trunks arc, Goku Black and Zamasu were able to destroy the Super Dragon Balls after using them, which is pretty surprising considering their status, but I guess the orbs themselves being relatively weak isn't a big deal. The real issue is the immortality wish. If the Super Dragon Balls could truly grant any wish, then Zamasu would have actually been immortal. What was that? You're saying he was immortal? Why are you using the past tense then? If he's immortal, he's still alive, right? Right? In both the manga and the anime, Zamasu is killed by Zeno despite wishing to be immortal on the Super Dragon Balls. Beerus himself says that he has to use a sealing technique on immortals since he can't kill them. Yes, this does mean Hakai doesn't work on immortals. Why else would they mention sealing him then? So this isn't an erasure distinction either, it's just the limits of the Super Dragon Balls, and that makes sense when you think about the normal Dragon Balls. The only people ever considered the strongest in the multiverse are Zeno or the Grand Priest. Even if we presume that Zalama is the third strongest, it means that the wishes stop being 100% effective when Zeno or the Grand Priest are involved. So the Super Dragon Balls can grant basically any wish, there's just a little bit of fine print. With that, we know the limits of the Dragon Balls. And I wish you'd subscribe if you haven't yet. And thank you so very much for watching.